education programs to adding more critically needed doctors to our communities. We look forward to working with the Senate and the governor to pass a budget that promotes access to quality and affordable health care for all of our citizens. We have the budget. Any questions from the committee? Could we have a motion? Have a motion to pass and a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Then it passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
I think everyone's here. I think we've got. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I really want to thank this committee for all the hard work they've done. I think we just had a member come in. If he would come up and have a seat, we'll get started, Carl. Carl, if you'll come up, we'll get started. Come have a seat. I know you're a friendly person. First of all, I just want to thank this committee for all the hard work they've done, and they've really met the challenge. And it has been challenging, but it's been a good challenge because we've been able to look at every department in economic development. Sometimes it sort of reminded me of when you were looking for money when you were a child, looking under all the cushions and everything of the sofa. We have looked everywhere for money, and we appreciate the challenge that we've had. Okay, if we'll start, the first is on Department of Agriculture, and this is Economic Development Appropriations. Department of Agriculture, 13.1.4. We said no to transferring the Athens Tifton Veterinarian Lab. We think it was a good idea. It was recommended by ZBB, but the budgeting, and they recommended it, but we found out through the process that no legislation has been done to authorize USG to make rate decisions, and they can't make rate decisions, and they do charge rates and everything. So we said no to that. And when legislation is provided, we can possibly do it because it has been recommended to us. If we'll go down under Consumer Protection, 13.2.6, we restored 2 animal inspectors and 5 food safety inspectors. As you're probably aware, we've had a very large increase in the number of stores now that provide food, and they were just regular, maybe I'm using General Dollar, and if you've lived in rural areas, you know they're popping up everywhere, and we've had a very large increase in the past 2 years. I think we've had 500 open in Georgia, and they do have to be inspected. So and food safety is one of our most important things to this committee. So we restored 5 food safety inspectors. And 13.2.6, we said no, we did not provide those cars in the supplemental budget. Then on 13.2.8, we provided a 4% targeted increase in salaries for inspectors to try to help the turnover for being so bad. 13.2.9, we provided $500,000, and this allows the state USDA to approve and move forward on our hemp program. Then we go over to 13.4.5. We maintain, and this is marketing, we maintained an international trade representative and a business support specialist. And we also eliminated funds to expand the growth director and domestic sales coordinator. 13.4.6, we maintained the Georgia Grown program and the developing of the Georgia Grown website. 13.4.7, we provided funds for 4% targeted salary increase for inspectors. Continuing on agriculture, and this is a poultry veterinarian diagnostic lab, 13.5.2. We reduced funds, we maintained funding for emergency equipment and finishing the building, but we reduced the funds for operating cost. Go down on soil and water, and first of all, I'd like to say that we appreciate Director Mitch Attaway. He has really worked hard on this program, and I'd like to recognize Jan Tankersley. And we're having a backlog of people having their reports filed that they have to, the soil sedimentation and control programs. So we have added a position on 13.7.9 for that, for an additional one, and Director Attaway has some other things in the works that we can help speed up that program. It's taken too long for builders to get their programs approved. And I forgot to say that 13.7.8, we reduced funds for the watershed damming staff. They found some extra money there that really weren't using it, and so we reduced it. Going to Department of Community Affairs. Let's see, 16.1.2, we said no to removing the fire inspectors, transferring the manufactured building inspectors over to the insurance department. No legislation has been provided to do that, and it needs legislation. The next change is that one thing you might be interested in, we had eliminated the funding for the blight removal and enforcement program because it never did get off the ground over in DCA. They did not have time to implement it, but we have transferred that money, that program, over to the natural resources in the solid waste trust fund. This met the recommendation and the definition of what solid waste trust fund does, and so we've moved it over to Department of Natural Resources. And the next one is the Commission on Holocaust. The Commission on Holocaust was moved to DCA in 2020, but due to some unforeseen costs, we decided this was not a good fit, and we're we're transferring the Holocaust to the Board of Regents. This is really an educational program, and we feel like that they will have found their home, and it'll be a standalone company to the board, agency to the Board of Regents. 16.12.5, we said no to that cut because there's no savings to the commission transferring it to the attached agency. The next, the payments to the Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, we reduced the cuts, and we restored half the cuts to the Water Planning Commission. We restored half the cuts to the Resource Conservation Development Districts, and half of the cut to the Georgia Rural Water Association. And we realize the importance of this, and we're hoping that the Senate will find some money and restore their full funding. And also, I don't know if you're really familiar with the Metropolitan Water Planning District, but they are charged with doing our 5-year water plan, and the 5-year water plan is coming up soon. So we added $275,000 to the Metropolitan North Water Planning District, and we hope that the other half will be found in the Senate. 16.6.2, we said yes to this, and they are utilizing existing funds for the Appalachian Region Commission assessment, and the state pays a portion of that by One Georgia, and we're directing One Georgia to pay the full assessment because we feel like that the mission of Appalachian Region Commission goes along with the development of rural areas. And there's a hope that we will have other counties that will be included in this in the near future. the next change, and I think that's all the changes in economic development. That's all the changes in community affairs. Now we're going on to economic development. There's only one change in economic development, and that change is found on 23.9.5, the funds for the Georgia Historical Marker Program, and they have requested, we reduced it to $50,000, and they've requested that we change the language in the appropriations to read Georgia Historical Monuments Association maintenance of the state marker program. They keep of all the historical monuments and markers in the state, and when we turned it over to them, that was the purpose of us funding the Historical Association to keep up these markers. And we restored half the cut and hope the Senate can find some more money. And that's the only change in economic development. The Forestry Commission, 26.1.6, we maintained the funds for the equipment maintenance and reduced the funds for personal operation expenses. Forestry management, 16.2.4, we reduced the funds for personal service to reflect the projected expenditures, and they're going to lapse the positions for 1 month before they start another hiring position. 16.2.5, we maintained funds for equipment maintenance and reduced the funds for operating expenses. 26.3.4, we maintained funds for equipment maintenance and reduced the funds for regular operating expenses. As you remember, we just bought a whole lot of new equipment, I think about $7 million of new equipment, and we've got to make sure that that equipment is maintained. 26.3.6, we reduced the funds for equipment purchasing, but we kept it for fire suppression equipment. And I think that's all in forestry. Public Service Commission, one thing that we realized when we've gone through this budget process, that from 2008 to 2020, the Public Service Commission's budget has only grown by 1%. And you know the workload that it's grown on our Public Service Commission with Plant Vogel coming in and rate changes. So you will see some changes in this to reflect the lack of growth with the lack of work that the Public Service Commission has to do. That's 40.1.7. We provided funds for anticipated personal service expenditures. 40.2.3, we provided funds for 2 inspectors of call before you dig. The call before you dig workload is increased. They do 312 investigations a year, and this will give us 2 more inspectors, and by that, they will bring in about $300,000 because there's that many people that are violating it with fines. Not that we're trying to make money off of it, but if they're violating it, they need to pay the fines. 40.2.4, and there's another place. There are 2 places and then 40.3.6. the rent has been increased over there because of the cafeteria, for common places in the cafeteria. And so you'll see where we added $18,000 to cover the additional rent because of the cafeteria. 40.3.3, we maintain funds for personal service and reduce funds for operation. 40.3.4, we said no to that. We felt like that it was important to use the resource and research that we receive from these professional organizations. And we really come out a little cheaper by using their research people than hiring people. I just appreciate and I think that's it. Do I have any questions? And I don't, if I don't have any questions, I just want to say that I'm really happy of what this committee's done to give back food inspectors and animal inspectors. I'm sure we've done a lot of good things, but that is really close to my heart, to make sure our food is safe. And I just want to thank them for their hard work. And Representative Tankley, thank you for your hard work with soil and water, and every one of y'all have worked real hard. And I just don't want to leave anybody out, but thank you. And we have a great committee, and if people want to know what you've done since you've been here at the session, you've worked on the budget, because we have worked. But thank you so much. At this time, do I hear any motion to accept? Do I hear a second? All in favor say yes. Yes. All opposed? Thank you. The budget's accepted.
Good morning. I know we're operating on a pretty tight schedule here, so I want to pull everybody together because this is going to be one of the most important parts of our budget this year, so I want you all to hear what I have to say. First of all, I want to start off by thanking Chairman England, our House Budget team, every single chairman that has worked together to help find funding, to allocate resources to human resources, and especially Michael Polachek sitting next to me, who does such a good job. I want to thank the members of the subcommittee for your hard work over the past several months. I want to thank Governor Kemp. You know, he took us to a place that I don't think any of us particularly knew this summer that we really needed to go to. But his recommendations made us take a deep dive into the programs, identify efficiencies, and to see how we can best maximize Georgia's tax dollars in a way that will continue to serve the citizens of our state and their needs. Since the governor presented the budget, as we looked at the 21 budget, this budget particularly, after the agency spoke to us, the committee listened to over 6 hours of very personal, heart-touching testimony. That was a long time to sit and listen, but they greatly impacted the choices that we made, along with the countless emails and phone calls from concerned constituents across the state, both urban and rural. These citizens shared their concerns about how the reductions would impact them, would impact their families and their communities. In reality, we've heard these same concerns for many years now, and a result have continued to conservatively invest into services that efficiently meet the needs of vulnerable Georgians. They may not impact you personally, but they impact someone you love, a family member, a friend, or a neighbor. Anything from services for behavioral health and developmental disabilities, to foster care, to elder abuse, and our veterans. The agencies that are impacted by these appropriations of state funds are essential for the people of Georgia to move forward and to be the best that they can be. At this time, I'd like to invite everyone to follow along in the tracking sheet. So starting with behavioral health and developmental disabilities, at line 15.1.4, the House has moved to increase funds to provide a 25% increase in residential treatment capacity for addictive diseases. In line 15.1.5, there is some language here that is very important to deal with the services for our pregnant and postpartum women living with substance abuse. In 15.2.9, to maintain $500,000 for family support services, general family support services, which will also include those very targeted services. DBHDD needs the flexibility to assess which contracts will best utilize this funding and to include those like Bobby Dodd, Easter Seals, and other providers, but use their wisdom to impact those groups that most need it at that moment in time. The next is at line 15.2.11, to maintain one filled behavioral health counselor, one filled community habitation worker, 2 filled social workers, and reflect the governor's intent of these positions. The next is at line 15.2.12. The House will increase the now and comp waivers, a total of 100, 60 comp and 40 now. This is very important as there are 6,314 currently on our wait list. This will help many of the people that I know have reached out to each and every member. At line 15.2.13, this will begin what you will see throughout this budget, which is to target very specific employees, not only with a merit-based pay increase, but in this one particular, it will be a 4% targeted salary increase. These are some of our highest turnover rate employees, a rate at 48% in the past year. It's very important that we address this. So that will be a total of a 6% targeted salary increase. 15.3.5. The House will maintain also much more specific positions, outlining them here in this budget to restore 2 of those 14 positions because they are at risk particularly of not transferring into a comparable position at the same location. 15.3.7, this is another 4% targeted salary increase. This turnover rate needs to be mitigated 48%. We need to keep and inspire and encourage those employees that are trained and hired by our state. The next is at 15.4.7. This mirrors what we did in the amended under provider support and training. 15.4.10. This will maintain funds for behavioral health core services. The House proposes to add $8,341,192. This will bring us back to the exact dollars that we left here last year for the very important core services that for years and years we've worked to build. 15.4.12 is another 4% targeted salary increase on top of the 2% to bring it to a total of 6 because of a 48% turnover rate. And 15.4.11, this will annualize the funds for statewide crisis beds and infrastructure capacity, maintaining 95 beds. Next, at 15.6.4, will also mirror the amended. The House will reflect the importance of Marcus Autism Center with the addition there to result in treating the 20 children that would not have had treatment and to help maintain the employees and staff that also need to be there. This will bring us to a $1.5 million total increase for Marcus. Next is at 15.8.8, which will maintain the funding for 2 previously identified respite homes, crisis respite homes, one in Bibb and one in Clayton County. This is connected to River Edge CSB. Each will have 16 beds. Next, under 15.9.5, this will be to help maintain 2 filled behavioral health counselors and reflect the governor's intention of reducing 16 positions. This will restore 2 out of those 18 positions that are also at risk because there is not placement for them in a comparable position at the same location. Next is 15.10.6. The House will maintain positions as well, restoring 14 of 59 positions because they are at risk of not transferring. At 15.10.7, this will address another targeted salary increase of 4% on top of the 2 for a total of 6 to mitigate low-paying service workers, particularly our housekeepers. There's an 80% turnover rate in these employees, and the House feels it's very important to address that. 15.11.3. These are the one-time funds associated with the prevention program in 5 of our technical colleges. Next, at 15.12.3, the House disagrees with not funding the camp at Emmanuel College that is held every year for our youth with disabilities, so we will restore that money. 15.13.4. This is going to be a transfer of funds. The GBI is very impactful in the work that we do to investigate the Sexual Offender Review Board. Only FBI agents can actually do some of this work. So the FBI will not allow us to access this database, so we must keep one GBI approved analyst in that position. And that reflects the $30 million plus that we have just found by the grace and goodness of others to help behavioral health and developmental disabilities and addiction. Next, we'll move to the Human Services Department. The first is at 28.3.2, and this simply recognizes the continuing following of the Children's Trust Fund money. The next, 28.5.11. This will replace $970,000 in state general funds with existing TANF funds for child protective caseworker positions, and utilize $500,000 in state funds for MAC, the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children. The next is at 28.5.12. This will keep a pilot program in place. 28.5.13. This will be another one of those targeted salary increases where the turnover rate for all supportive service caseworkers is 36%. $28.7.12, the Georgia Memory Net project. The House disagrees and will make sure that that money is there to affect our ongoing efforts to address the challenges of all things that affect Alzheimer's, and certainly any challenges to the brain and mind that we can address. The next is 28.9.2 under Elder Community Living Services. This will be a transfer of funds. We disagree. 28.10.4, the House will also disagree, and that is recognizing the last measure that I just spoke about. 28.12.6. So this is going to maintain and increase our efficiency, particularly in the eligibility of federal benefits. We'll maintain $1,122,534,000 to adequately staff the levels and salaries that we find here in this place. This will be a total of 1,883 caseworkers. At any given time in our state, there are 1.5 million cases. So these are those very important SNAP and other eligibility programs to help expedite and handle appropriately the work of that group. 28.18.3. We disagree with eliminating the one-time funds for a council meeting of the Council on Aging. Next at 28.19.1, and actually point 2, to restore and maintain the important work of family connection. We'll maintain each county allocation and bring up this year's cut, reduce it to make that a total of $48,500 for each and every county. Also then at 19.2, to continue with the technical assistance that the counties need. And that will take us through the Human Services Department. In Veterans, there is only one change in the last line, 48.4.5, and this is another one of those very important targeted salary increases for our field service officers who have a turnover rate of 36%. We will continue to increase and try to look out for them so they can look out for our veterans as well. As I said earlier, just to reflect a moment, the subcommittee worked so hard, and I'm so proud I'm so proud of the work that we did. As you can see, I've watched your faces. I know many of you that are in here also testified in many of these subcommittee meetings. This is huge to restore $38 million into program services and jobs spread across these various agencies, including over, as I said, $30 million for the Department of Behavioral Health and Development Disabilities. The response is increasing and the demand for these services. To reflect that, here's just a recap. We increased the state's residential treatment capacity for addiction by 25%, adding 44 new beds. Fully restoring the behavioral health core services, which expands the statewide safety net for Georgia's most vulnerable. Adding 100 now in comp waivers. Add 2 new crisis respite homes and restoring funding for the Marcus Autism Center to address the mental health needs of our children. Providing $500,000 for MAC, the Multiple Agency Alliance for Children. Restoring 22 currently filled positions in DBHDD. And providing additional salary increases targeting the high turnover positions impacting 3,788 frontline employees within the DBHDD, DFACS, and veterans offices. I thank each of you for the work that you've done to help these very, very important services have the opportunity to be reestablished. Are there any questions? Not seeing any, I would entertain a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed by like sign. Thank you so much for your support. We are adjourned.
Good morning. All right, we're going to commence the Public Safety Subcommittee's presentation of the budget. This is the big budget we're working off of track sheets. You have them before you. We're on a tight schedule here. We got to get this done out. All right, first off, I want to tell members thank you very much for your hard work, questions, and persistence. I also want to thank Courtney George and Brian Groom for their hard work on our staff. Martha and Christine, thank you very much for all your hard work. And Chairman England, thank you for your leadership. Thank Governor Kemp for his hard work and his staff's hard work and their help and assistance with preparing this information for us, and for him giving us some guidance on the direction that he would like to take the budget. In response, what we'd like to do is basically say a few things that are key importance. Number one, there will be no ground lost on criminal justice reform with this big budget. Number two, accountability courts have a 75% success rate. There are 570 nonviolent offenders who can be helped through the program in the years to come. 3 out of 4 people who go through accountability courts do not recidivate. We're going to restore about $1.5 million. And add another $1 million just to address crime lab backlog. There are 45,000 pieces of evidence that are in the backlog, and we're going to try to help GBI address that with this budget. Sexual assault victims will not have to wait months for those kits to be tested. We're going to put money in the budget for that. And then also, we're also addressing our Sixth Amendment right to criminal defense for those that need assistance of counsel. 8 counties in the state would not have been provided funding under the proposed budget, but we have solved that problem with this proposed budget, and we're going to ensure that there are a total of 22 attorneys to reduce the caseload of public defenders by 11.5% across the state. With that brief introduction, I'll go right through the budget, keep track, we're going to move fast. All right, Court of Appeals, Section 5. You'll see throughout there's a 2% merit-based adjustment. That's at line 5.1.2. I'm not going to repeat that. That's going to be throughout. It's a statewide increase, and I'll only identify those that are different for the various entities or sections of the budget that we'll address. You'll note also that 5.1.3, there's a language change here. At 5.1.6, we've said no to the request for a human resource manager, and the same for 5.1.7, no to the Court of Appeals shared payroll coordinator. Statewide business court, we had a true up at 5.2.1. Judicial Council, Section 6. At 6.4.3, we had additional monies for the kinship care services, and we also we actually asked them to hold the position at 6.4.4, hold that position and use existing funds for a caseload analyst position. 6.5, the Judicial Qualifications Commission. Here we added 2 staff attorneys at line 6.5.3. At 4, 5, and 6, we had investigator contracts added, real estate rental expenses added, also operating expenses added to the budget. At Section 7, the juvenile courts, 7.1.2, we said no to the JDAI initiative position. At Prosecuting Attorney Council, Section 8, moving through here, we also had merit-based adjustments for the district attorneys at 8.2.2. We also had a retention and recruitment adjustment here at line 8.2.3. We said no to the addition of 12 assistant DAs for the juvenile courts at line 8.2.4, but we did say fund 6 of those, and we funded those in the rural circuits. At 8.2.6, 7, and 8, we added an assistant DA for the Ogeechee, Flint, and Cobb circuits. Moving on to Superior Court, Section 9. At 9.3.2, there's the merit-based adjustments. At 9.3.6, you'll see that we added the judgeships beginning January 1st of 2021 for the Ogeechee, Flint, and Cobb circuits. This was actually a reduction in state funds because we're doing half the year. And then we, instead of adding 10 law clerks, we proposed there'd be 5 law clerks at 9.3.9. Moving on to the next section, Section 10, Supreme Court. You'll see at Supreme Court, Section 10.1.9 and 10.1.10. These are the commensurate cuts to the manager's position and the coordinator's position that was seen in the Court of Appeals. Section 18, Community Service Department of. Number 1, we have a change here at the, you'll see throughout the budget that there's a reduction in the certified teachers payroll, reduction on the 40,000 person, the $100,000 pay increase has been converted to that 2% merit-based increase. So you'll see that as a no throughout. Also at line 18.2.6, we asked them to maintain 11 security positions. They have 26 sworn and 50 non-sworn. We put back 11 sworn in this budget. Moving on to the next section, Section 19, Department of Corrections. At the Department of Administration, you'll see at 19.2.13, a 2% targeted increase for correctional officers. That's in addition to the statewide 2, so that'll be a 4% total. Detention centers, the same at line 19.3.6. Food and farm operations, the same, 19.4.4. Health, the same at 19.5.9. You'll notice at 19.5.8, we had a redirection of about $3.5 million and an add for $10 million for health services. At section 19.8, state prisons, at the very bottom you'll see at 19.8.22, we had a 2% targeted salary increase. 19.9, transition centers, the same thing at line 19.9.5, 2% targeted increase. No changes in the Department of Defense, section 20. In the Governor's Office regarding the Emergency Management Homeland Security Agency, no changes. GBI, we have some changes here at section 30.2, Criminal Justice Information Services. You'll see that we asked them to increase the charges for criminal background checks by $2.25, which reduces state funding. Forensic scientist, you'll see at line 30.3.4. This is very important. It takes 8 to 10 scientists to test about 100 to 110 sexual assault kits. The governor's recommendation was to reduce that. We are saying no to that reduction. That will increase the, and specifically we're asking them to rehire forensic scientists and lab techs to address the criminal backlog, particularly the sexual assault kits. This should put them at a point where they will not accrue more in backlog, but help them to catch up with the current rate of kits that are coming in. At lines 30.3.6, you'll see that we've also asked them to maintain, put in $500,000 to maintain the Pooler Crime Lab, the Coastal Crime Lab. We asked them to utilize the previous $500,000 that they were using to support that facility, to spend that money on scientists and technicians to address other backlogs. We also added line 30.3.8. We put in additional money, $1 million for outsourcing of chemistry-based cases for testing outside of the lab. Regional Investigative Services, line 30.4.5, we asked them to maintain 4 sworn officers and 1 forensic auditor. They have a number of officer-involved shootings that needs to be addressed, and these officers will help with those issues. At 30.4.8, Ms. Dempsey pointed out that the SORB, which is the Sexual Offender Registration Review Board, must maintain at least 1 member of GBI in order to connect with the FBI's background check services. At section 30.5, Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, at line 30.5.5, we said no to the reduction in the juvenile justice incentive grants. At line 30.5.7, we said no to the reduction in the technical assistance from Department of Behavioral Health. Line 30.5.9, we said no to the reduction in the accountability courts. Juvenile justice, section 31. There's a 95% turnover rate for the juvenile court correctional officers, and so you'll see some changes here. At 30.1.9, you'll see the certified personnel reduction from $2,000 increase in salaries to $1,000. That is throughout with all the teachers. You'll see at 31.2.8, there's a 4% salary increase for juvenile correction officers, which will be in addition to this 2% statewide, amounting to over $2,000 pay increase for JCOs. Secured commitments, and that hopefully will address the 95% turnover rate. At secured commitments, you'll see the change at 31.3.12. Regarding the teachers within the system, you'll see 31.3.13, the 4% targeted also at 31.4.10, and then the reduction on teachers in the DJJ system at 31.4.9. Department of Law, 1 change there at section 33.1.9. We asked them to maintain 5 staff attorney positions and 8 support staff. At section 35, pardons, paroles, you'll see a change here. These are all true-ups at line 35.1.6, 35.2.4, and 35.2.9. Public Defenders Council, section 37. At 37.1.5 is a true-up. At 37.1.7, you'll see a statement of not reducing the funds for the training expenses. Also, a no to the reduction in the purchase card expenses at 37.1.8. At 37.2.5, you'll see that we said no to the reduction in contract rates. We also said no to the freezing of vacancies at 37.2.6. You'll see that we also made a recommendation of aligning the Public Defenders Council salaries with those of the assistant attorney, prosecuting attorneys, which also saw a pay increase in this budget. So you'll see that alignment there at 37.2.7. At 37.2.8, we have 6 additional public defenders for the juvenile courts in the same circuits as which were added for the ADAs. At lines 37.2.9 and 37.2.10, those were an addition of an assistant public defender in the Griffin Circuit and the Gwinnett Judicial Circuit, annualizing that. And 37.2.11 12 and 13 are all adding PDs, assistant PDs, the Ogeechee, Flint, and Cobb circuits. Public safety, section 39, you'll see here at field services 39.4. You'll see at line 39.4.4, we said there's a freezing of vacant positions there. This included $2.4 million for a trooper school, for the 4th trooper school, which we said no to the 4th trooper school, leaving it at the current 3. At 39.4.7, we have an attrition in trooper schools. We have 3 trooper schools, and the goal is a 75% graduation rate, which is 38 officers. We funded at 50 officers, so we did a step down to go from 50 funded officers to 40. The best rate of graduation has been about 60%, or about 30 officers. So there's still built-in cushion there, but we are bringing that number down. At section 39.7.4, with dealing with the Firefighter Standards and Training Council, we said no to the reduction in temporary proctors, monitors, and evaluators. At 39.8.8, we said no to the reduction in the contracts with the Georgia Sheriff's Association and the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. At Public Safety Training Center, at the lines 39.9.6, we said here that we needed to restore 1 instructor at this position for fire training at the Fire Academy. At 39.9.7, 39.9.8, and 39.9, all these deal with reestablishing the training courses for volunteer firefighters, law enforcement, and COs. There are 200 new, and with respect to the North Central Law Enforcement Academy, which trains 200 new officers and 150 new jailers each year, we've said no to that cut. Office of Highway Safety, in our last budget item, is 39.10. At 39.10.4, we said no to the reduction in Joshua's Law, and we said that rather than reducing a fee that's supposed to go for scholarships for those that are learning to drive, we said that the office itself should take a reduction in operating expenses at line 39.10.5. With that, I would like to entertain a motion to approve this. And I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Seeing none, this budget is approved and recommended to the full committee. Thank you.
Did you take any breaths? Did you take a breath?
How's that?
Morning, everyone. Well, it's 8:50, so I'll call our Education Subcommittee to order. Special thanks to this morning to Chairman England for saving the best Appropriations Committee to go last. Maybe I'll be awake now. Over the last few months, my committee has heard from many stakeholders and how important many different aspects of education are in achieving the ultimate goal of a well-educated, student-ready education. And I want to thank my committee members for their hard work and dedication on this budget. They've been very involved with the presentations and the details, and I appreciate each and every one's commitment, especially the input of Chairman England and the House budget staff, and Sarah Aurora for her many long hours working on this budget. We in the House support Georgia's educators and value the abundant responsibilities they have in cultivating the lives of Georgia children. The House version of FY 2021 budget is a direct reflection on that value and the support for K-12 education. K-12 education is the largest single expenditure in the budget, totaling $10.7 billion, or 44.3% of the state general budget. My committee is proud to say that the QBE formula has been fully funded for 3 years in a row, providing local school systems and teachers the resources necessary to educate our children here in Georgia. As we walk through this budget, you'll see an adjustment to the governor's proposed educator pay raise. We had to balance our needs in education and the proposed educator pay raise with the needs of other state agencies and their employees in positions that experience extremely high turnover rates, and also provide the essential services to Georgians. The governor recommended a $2,000 pay raise, educator, and a pay raise we know very much they deserve. The pay in the House version of this budget will be $1,000, which is a 2.7% increase on the base teacher salary. When this pay raise is combined with the raise from the 2020 budget, it represents an 11.7% increase to the base teacher salary. This budget also supports teachers and students by fully funding the school counselor ratio at 1 to 450 for all QBE student categories. Teachers and school counselors work hard hand in hand to support each other. The $24.8 million added to this budget will fund about 540 school counselors across Georgia. So let's walk through the budget now. Pre-K program, 23.3.6, restore funding for information technology staffing and services and Georgia Family Connections Partnership, total $410,000. 22.3.8, maintain funding for pre-K specialists. 23.3.10 is a pay raise adjustment for lead and assistant teachers, $1,000 for lead teachers and 3% for assistant teachers. 22.3.12, $4 million for an additional 1,000 pre-K slots. This is the first time there's been an increase in slots in 8 years. This brings the total number of slots to 85,000. 22.3.13, increased funds for pre-K classroom operations by 2.5%. This is the first increase since fiscal year 2009 for a total of $1.8 million. 22.3.14, $320,000 to provide funds for 4 behavioral and classroom support specialists to assist lead teachers and assistant teachers. DeKalb already has behavior specialist position in their child care service program funded through federal funds. Department of Education. Ag Education, 24.1.7. We're asking to provide funds for 5 young farmer positions, $425,000. 24.1.8, increase funds for 17 new extended day year programs. 24.19, provide funds for an urban and suburban agricultural specialist. And 24.1.11, $150,000 to fund 2 program specialists at the youth camps. Business and Finance, 24.2.9, budget analyst, grant manager position to ensure accuracy in data collection and formula calculations, $125,000. Charter schools, 24.4.3, restore $204,000 for facilities grants, and at 24.4.8, increase funds by $500,000 for facilities grant. DOE prioritizes applications for school safety. Chief Turnaround Officer, 24.5.4, transfer $700,000 back to school improvement, which was an initial investment by the department, and 24.5.5, reduce remaining funds to reflect this program elimination. GNETs, it's all formula true up. Non-QBE formula grants, 24.1.13.3. We are providing a hold harmless to residential treatment facilities, recognizing a decline in enrollment, but giving them time to restart their personnel. 24.13.6, reduce funds for a vacant program RTC manager position, preschool disability services, pupil transportation, equalization, and local 5 meal share are all true-ups on your track sheet. QBE education program. 24.19.1 provides a true-up which provides $143 million for enrollment growth, training, and experience. The majority of the funding is for training and experience, reflecting 1,438 new teachers and a corresponding health insurance cost. At 24.19.3, this is where you'll see the pay adjustment to $1,000 for certified educators and personnel beginning September 1st, 2020. This budget also includes a 5% pay raise for bus drivers and lunchroom workers and a 2% pay raise for school nurses. 24.19.8 provide a whole harmless for the funding formula for school nurses. 24.19.10 fully fund school counselor ratio for all 18 QBE categories, 24.8 million. Regional Education Service Agencies, RESAs, restore reductions in lines 24.20.2 and 24.20.3 for mental health consulting services and the RESA base grant. School improvement, 24.21.11, funds transferred from the CTO. State Charter School Commission Administration, 24.22.1. This is other funds, but the commission made reductions in other state agencies, so recognizing that here is $315,000. State schools, 24.23.6, restore the entire proposed reduction of $2 million. The state schools provide for the direct education of our visually and hearing impaired children. Our children at state schools are our responsibility, and we need to make sure they have the education needs met. Other changes here were just formula true-ups. Technology career education at 24.24.6 is pay raise adjustment. Testing, 24.25.7, recommending an additional $670,000 for AP exams, one for free and reduced price lunch students, and one STEM exam per student. ERS, our employees retirement system, at 25.4.1, we're inserting language urging the board to consider a benefit adjustment in FY 2021. Georgia Professional Standards Commission, 27.6.8, restore funding for one field ethics investigator position and redirect remaining funds for one ethics paralegal position to help with the backlog of educator ethics complaints. And last, TRS, our teacher retirement system, no changes. This budget reflects a $343 million investment to QBE. When the $3,000 pay raise in FY 2020 is combined with this year's raise, the state will have invested over $672 million to boost educator pay. I think that's monumental. This is something that we were committed to last year, and the commitment continues in this budget. But we cannot lose sight of the fact that there are other ways to enrich teaching profession. I believe we've taken a step in the right direction with providing $24.8 million for additional school counselors, knowing they support educators and have a positive impact on the entire school climate as well. And we continue to look for other ways to boost the teaching profession. Are there any questions from our committee? Again, I appreciate all of y'all's input and direction on this budget. I'll entertain a motion there. Motion passed. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Hope everyone is doing well. When we when we had set up the 7 o'clock start time, I don't think any of us was thinking about the adjustment in the time change. But either way, we are all here and ready to roll. And call this meeting to order to consider House Bill 793. And at this time, I'm going to ask Jay Neal, my good friend from up in Northwest Georgia, if he will, to give us an invocation. Thank you, my friend. As I mentioned when we took up the amended version of the budget, Jay had been with us in the House at that point in time and would always send me a note that he was praying for me on the days that I was presenting the budget. And so I just, it gives me a little bit of comfort to know that he's still hanging around a little bit and willing to bring a message to the Lord. So at this point, I will turn the chairmanship over to our Vice Chair, Clay Perkle, so I can present the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The chair now recognizes Chairman Terry England to present the fiscal year 2021 budget, HB 793. Mr. Chairman.
Good morning. Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, many of you have been with us since we started this morning at 7 o'clock and have heard much of what is contained, or most of what is contained, or basically all of what is contained within House Bill 793 and the FY21 budget. I want to stop real quick and thank a lot of folks. I want to thank our subcommittee chairs for the hours and hours and hours of work that they have put in. Thank our staff of the House Budget and Research Office for every 1 hour that we put in as elected leaders on this budget. They probably put in 3 or 4 compared to our 1. And Martha and Christine, our entire staff, do an outstanding job, and I would put them up against any budget office, not just in the state of Georgia, but around this country. We have some of the brightest and most talented young folks and employees there that do an incredible job, and I want to thank them. Thank you to our committee members as well. You have set in many hours of hearings, whether it was on the amended budget, which much of it ties into the budget that's in front of you today, and the hearings on this actual budget as well. I want to thank the governor and the governor's staff and OPB and agency heads for the input that they have had with us, the conversations that we've had. We realize that the proposals we are making are in some cases pretty vastly different than those that they'd originally proposed. However, we know that this is a process. We understand that, and I think they do too. I know the governor certainly does, having served in the state Senate and been involved in the budgetary process. And as we go forward, of course, this bill will be moving over to the Senate for them to make changes and adjustments as they see necessary. And then we'll all sit down and come up with a plan that we feel best suits the needs of the state of Georgia and our 10.7 million citizens. We agreed with about 80% actually of the governor's reduction in vacancies throughout this budget. As we reviewed different places and saw different things, as business climate has changed, as the way we do business has changed, as technology has evolved, it makes it easier to do less with more in many cases. So you'll see throughout the budget there are many places where we have agreed with the governor's reduction in vacancies or in personnel there. But however, realizing that in doing so, sometimes that means that some individuals are tasked with doing more with less. And in recognition of that, you'll see spread throughout the budget as statewide changes a 2% merit increase for all state employees. Now that's separate from the teachers, because we'll talk about teachers here in just a second. But you'll also see some very targeted pay raises in areas of very high turnover. So in areas where turnover is north of 30%, we have gone in and done some very targeted pay raises for those particular classes of employees. It's not only an issue of morale and keeping folks on the job, but it's also on the backside an issue of training cost. In many of these agencies and many of these professions, we spend quite a bit of state funds to train these individuals only to have them leave after a short period of time. So we're trying to recognize that. So you'll see some targeted pay raises that are 2%, 4%, and 5% in addition to the 2% statewide raises as well. And now to our teachers. We all know of teachers that have had incredible impacts on our lives. Teachers that we remember today as something special, for something special they did for us when we were students. We have teachers, I have teachers that were teachers of mine in elementary, middle, and high school that I still see and talk to on a fairly often basis back home. We all appreciate the job that they do. And in doing so, what we have done here is a disagreement with the governor from doing the $2,000 pay raise to doing a $1,000 pay raise this year. We will come back again next year and look at the promised additional $1,000 to get them to $5,000 within the governor's first term. However, we do recognize, as Chairman Dickey had stated a little bit ago, that to teachers it's not all about the money. Quite often it's about those support services and those wraparound services that they have available to them, not only in the classroom, but in the community as well. Whether it's taking some of their tight, highly managed time to stand for additional minutes in line at a driver services center to get a driver's license renewal, or whether it's making sure that that kid that has an issue, whether it's something to do with foster care, the issue in foster care, or some other developmental issue that they're dealing with is not disrupting their classroom, that they can sit and concentrate on specifically teaching those students that are there and ready to learn. We understand that at this point that it is going to be a little disappointment to some that we're not going to the $2,000 number. However, in talking to teachers and educators, not only in my district but from around this state, most, if not all, have told me that they understand that many of the things that we're looking and seeking to go back in and kind of backfill are things that are important to them, not only as a teacher, but as a resident of this state. Remember, we are charged with taking care of all 10.7 million residents in the state of Georgia. And that's what we seek to do here. As Chairman Dickey had mentioned, even with the reduction to a $1,000 raise, it's still over the 2-year period, including the $3,000 last year, amounts to an 11.7% increase in base teacher salary. That's pretty strong. And we commit that we're going to continue down that road and continue to fulfill that obligation that not only the governor has made, but we as a House and Senate have agreed to as well. So if you will, please follow through the budget with me. Section 1, the Senate, no changes at this point. Section 2, the Georgia House, 2.1.2, you'll see the first entry on the statewide change. I will not point those out as we go through because it is scattered throughout the budget. However, at 2.1.3, you'll see where we're recognizing where we would have normally taken a reduction, recognizing the funds we would have reduced in order to put back in for the special session. We will come back in next year to handle reapportionment with. Moving on to joint offices, you'll see an addition there at 3.1.5 for some of the expenses that will be incurred in preparing for that special session. Audits and accounts, section 4. Most everything there are the statewide changes and just a few true-ups. Court of Appeals, section 5. You'll see where at 5.1.6 and 5.1.7, Chairman Welch and his committee have said no at this point on those 2 additional shared positions. You'll also see this show up in the Supreme Court as well. 5.2.1 under the Business Court, you'll see a true-up. Section 6, Judicial Council. 6.4.3, you'll see a change in the kinship care dollars there, an addition of $125,000, which puts $500,000 into the base. Under the JQC, you'll see some adjustments and additions there for staff attorneys, for some investigations, operating expenses, and real estate expenses there. Section 7, juvenile courts, saying no at this point to that addition of that detention alternative initiative coordinator position. It is actually funded currently in DJJ with federal funds, so it's not needed at this point in time. Section 8, prosecuting attorneys. You'll see an adjustment at 8.2.3, directing those increases to the ones that are furthest behind on the pay scale. At 8.2.4 for the assistant DAs, focusing on rural areas, and just saying at this point we'll add 6 circuits to the additional assistant DAs. 8.2.6, 7, and 8, you'll see the recognition of the new judgeships starting on January 1st. Moving on over to Superior Courts at 9.3.6, just the new judgeships there at 3.6, 3.7, and 3.8 that have been recommended by the council. And then at 9.3.9, just saying we will add 5 of the new law clerk positions at this point. Section 10, Supreme Court, you'll see the corresponding disagreement there at 10.1.9 and 10.1.10 for those shared positions at this time. State Accounting Office, you will see over at 11.5.7 under what we all know as the Ethics Commission, going in and adding 1 senior auditor, 1 junior auditor, 1 administrative financial assistant, and 1 training and IT public affairs position there as they expand their work. Section 12, DOAS. 12.1.1, just restoring that cut there because it is required under code that panel be funded. Section 13, Department of Ag. Chair Lady Houston and her committee have sat with Commissioner Black and his team and gone through looking at things that were recommended there for his agency. Some things we've agreed with, some things we've changed up a little. At 13.1.4, you'll see the first change, saying no to moving the labs over to the regents. Regents do not have a way statutorily to make rate decisions, so at this point, until legislation is introduced and passed, we're saying no to that. And that will correspond in regents at 41.2.1. Moving down to 13.2.6, mirroring what we did in the amended budget, adding 2 animal inspectors and 5 food safety inspectors. Those 2 animal inspectors work with about 15,000 cattle producers across this state, and the beef cattle industry itself is about a $1 billion farm gate value in our state as well. Saying no to the reductions at 13.2.7. Given what we did in the amended budget, that was not a usable cut at this time. 13.2.8, you will see the first of the targeted salary increases, the additional 4% in addition to the 2% as it relates to these inspectors. Meat inspectors turnover rates right at 41%, compliance specialists right at 43%, and the plant inspectors at 22.6%. This impacts about 260 employees in the Department of Ag, and the average raise there is going to be about $1,400. 13.2.9, continuing to stand up the Georgia Hemp Program per House Bill 213 in last year's session. Moving on to 13.3.6, just a true up there of some additional savings. 13.4.5, a restoration of international trade rep and business support analysts. Those were some of the recommendations that came out of the Rural Development Council last year. 13.4.6, restoring $572,000 for the Georgia Grown Marketing Program and the Georgia Grown website, and some farmers market maintenance as well. 13.4.7, another 4% targeted increase for inspectors there. 13.5.2, the last remaining dollars that are required to finish up that building where they're storing the equipment for the avian influenza out. If there were to be an avian influenza outbreak, they've got some equipment stored there. 13.7.6, you'll see there as a true up. 13.77, another true up. 7.8 is another true up under State Soil and Water Commission. 13.7.9, the addition of one plan reviewer, as NRCS has pulled back on their plan reviews. It's put a little more pressure on the Soil and Water Conservation Commission to do those plan reviews so that projects can continue to move in the state of Georgia. Section 14, Department of Banking and Finance. Only one change other than the statewide changes at 14.3.6. Just saying no at this point to the transfer of the industrial loan program from the insurance commissioner. Legislation has not been passed to do that yet, and that is required before that can be done. Section 15, behavioral health. 15.1.5. Excuse me, back up to 15.1.4. Reducing the cut there to maintain or add 44 additional beds, bringing the statewide beds for the treatment of addictive diseases from 176 to 220. And then utilize existing funds at 15.1.5 of $50,000 for treatment of pregnant and postpartum women that have a substance abuse disorder as well. Moving on down to 15.2.9, you'll see the restoration of $500,000 there for the Bobby Dodd and Easter Seals contracts. Then at 15.2.11, restoring 4 out of the 12 recommended positions that were going to be eliminated there. 15.2.12, Chair Lady Dempsey and her committee, and I'm pretty sure all of you have heard from individuals asking for additional help with now and comp waivers, and this House is proposing adding 60 comp and 40 now waivers there at that line. So that will add an additional 100 waivers total. 15.2.13, another 4% targeting increase in a division that was seeing a 48% turnover rate. Moving down to 15.3.5, again, restoring 2 of 14 positions that were at risk, that are filled, that are at risk of not being able to relocate. 15.3.7, again, another 4% targeted increase there. 15.4.7, dealing with the training, workforce training for behavioral health, restoration of part of that cut to allow the agency to contract for those services and do what they need to do in places they need to do it. 15.4.10, a full restoration there on those behavioral health beds. And what that will do, that will allow for, well, in FY19, there were about 109,000 individuals served by those beds, and it just keeps us from going backwards there. 15.4.11, you'll see an addition there that maintains 95 beds across 21 crisis units statewide. And then at 15.4.12, another targeted 4% increase there for those individuals. 15.6.4, the restoration of the Marcus Autism contract there. 15.8.8, restoration of some of the funds there for Rivers Edge, CSB, and Bibb and Clayton County. I have 16 treatment beds in both of those facilities. 15.9.5, restoring 2 of the 18 positions there that were at risk of not being able to transfer. 15.10.6, restoring 14 of the 59 positions there that were at risk of not being able to transfer. 15.10.7, another targeted 4% increase. 15.11.3, just saying to redirect $130,000 in one-time funds for curriculum development into additional prevention services. 15.12.3, under the Georgia Council of Developmental Disabilities, saying no to the reduction of the summer count for children with developmental disabilities. And then at 15.3.4, you'll see where we're reducing that by half. One of those individuals has to stay at GBI in order for the information to be shared. Section 16, Community Affairs. 16.1.2, we're just saying no to that item of moving that. Legislation is required for that transfer. 16.2.5, restoration of $150,000 cut to the ARC that we had taken a few years ago in recognition of some issues that they had. 16.3.4, saying no to that reduction. There is no duplication between those offices. One is proactive and the other one is reactive, so they have totally different job charges. Moving on to section 16.10. At 16.10.2, the Athens Design Studio, saying no to the closure of it. There is one person that works there in that office, but they also work hand in hand with a lot of students from the university over there. And they target 30 to 35 rural communities a year in helping them redesign their downtowns, and felt like that was something that needed to be maintained. 16.10.9, just a true up in what that number should be. 16.12.4, what you see here is the actual movement of the Georgia Commission on the Holocaust over to the Board of Regents. However, in Regents, you'll see two transactions there, but ultimately what the Holocaust Commission will wind up being is an attached agency to Regents, but not attached to any one particular school. In talking with them, that was what they felt was the best fit for them as well. Moving down to 16.14.1, under Georgia Environmental Finance Authority, reducing the cut at 16.4.1, then also at 14.2, 3, and 4, restoration of funds on those three line items there. Then at 16.14.5, $275,000 to go toward the update of the 5-year plan that is necessary. 16.16.2, you'll see where we're saying utilize existing funds from One Georgia Authority to pay Georgia's ARC assessment. The ARC in Georgia works with about 37 counties from North Georgia to Central and West Central Georgia. Moving on to Department of Community Health, the first change other than statewide changes you'll see is going to be under Healthcare Access and Improvement. 17.4.3, saying no to the cut to the Rural Health Systems Innovation Center. 17.4.4 is a bookkeeping item, reducing the one-time startup funds for the FQHCs, but then at 17.4.5, you'll see where we added two new FQHCs, one primary care center in Wayne County and one school-based primary care center in Irwin County. Moving on down to 17.4.6, just a reduction of one-time funds there. 17.4.7, some help for a charity clinic working to be established in Clay County. 17.4.8, just the recognition of the expansion of scope for the Rural Hospital Stabilization Commission that was established many years ago, adding $7 million to the base there for the work that they are doing. Moving on to 17.5.4, the addition of 2 registered nurse surveyors for nursing homes and 2 surveyors for other licensing of facilities. Many of you had seen the AJC report on what is going on in some of our assisted living centers. We're just trying to help DCH have the proper manpower to go in and do what they need to do on inspections there. 17.7.8, recognizing where many of our skilled nursing facilities are continuing to build on the excellent job that they do throughout the state, and helping them with some of the work that's being done as they get recognized by JCO and the American Healthcare Association on quality rankings. And at 17.7.9, an adjustment of 3% for vent bed rates there. 17.8.1 is just a true up of the projection on Medicaid. Then if you drop down to 17.8.9, 8.10, Chair Lady Cooper and many, many others have been working on the issue of maternal mortality. Many of you in this room have had individuals that you know touched in that way, and we realize we can do better in this state. And Chair Lady Cooper has a bill that is coming that will expand coverage for mothers postpartum from 2 months up to 6 months. So that's a recognition there in both lines for that. 17.8.11, 1% increase in the reimbursement rates for 108 primary care codes. And then at 17.8.12, and that also is tied to 17.9.3, just increasing the reimbursement rate for the silver diamine fluoride. Any of y'all that need to understand that fully can check with Chairman Parrish in a little bit. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I know it keeps cavities from starting in teeth of young children. Moving on to 17.12, 17.12.1, just saying that we're going to fund 185 residency slots in primary care medicine there. 17.12.3, saying no to the cut on the accelerated track program at Augusta University in Savannah. Moving on down to 17.12.7, saying no to that reduction and allow Augusta University to prioritize those fellowships. And then at 17.12.9, 10, and 11, saying no to those reductions as well. And then at 17.12.12, allowing for the startup of a new rural psychiatry residency program at Colquitt Regional Medical Center. They have already put a lot of skin in the game there locally, and we're just trying to help them out with that. 17.13.2, 17.14.2, we're saying no to those reductions at Mercer and Morehouse. 17.15.1, saying no to the loan repayment reductions there. 17.15.12, just a true up of the number on the malpractice insurance for those loan practitioners in rural Georgia. 17.16.2, saying no to the reduced funds on the capitation rate. That amounts to about $6,300 per student, and it's already pretty tight for them. We need to do what we can to keep them in state as well. 17.17.3, saying no to the elimination of the medical director position. And then at 17.18.5, saying no to the language that was doing away with the data management system there under drugs and narcotics. Section 18, community supervision. 18.2.6, you'll see we've put back 11 of the sworn positions that are not vacant. Moving through there, you'll see the adjustments that we've made on the 2% statewide spreads. Section 19, first change you'll come to is at 19.2.13, a targeted 2% increase for the correctional officers, 42% turnover rate, so that'll be 2 plus 2, so that'll be a 4% actual bump in their compensation. You'll see the same again at 19.3.6, 19.4.4, and at 19.5.9. You'll see an additional, a language piece and additional cash at 19.5.8, saying for them to redirect $3.5 million from electronic health records and an additional $10 million for the health care costs that are increasing exponentially within the Department of Corrections. Moving on to 19.8.22 and 19.9.8, you'll see 2 more of the targeted salary increases there. Section 20, Department of Defense, all we have there are the statewide changes. Section 21, DDS, reduction in the cut at 21.1.6. Also a reduction in the cut at 21.2.5, allowing them to maintain funds to be able to install vault and security systems and to maintain a contract on armored trucks to take money from those driver services centers to the banks as well. 21.2.6, to maintain $700,000 on that line item for 19 driver services examiners. And at 21.2.10, a targeted additional 2% for those testers that work there in driver services. 39% turnover rate is what we've been seeing there. 21.3.6, a reduction in the cut on that. Moving on to section 22, saying no to the reduction at 22.1.4 on the CAPS program. Felt that that's something important, as we mentioned a while ago, the importance of our teachers, but understanding there are many other aspects within this budget that touch teachers on a daily basis, and that's one of those things. 22.1.5, Chair Lady Dempsey and her committee, actually a study committee, have recommended that a state infant and early childhood mental health coordinator be put into place, and we're doing that there. Saying no to the reduction at 22.3.6 to our Friends at Georgia Family Connection Partnership. Then at 22.3.8, saying no to the reduction for that position there. 23.3.10 is the first place that you actually see the adjustment on the teacher pay raise. At 22.3.12, you'll see the addition of 1,000 pre-K slots. That will bring the total number of slots in the state of Georgia to 85,500. That is actually the first increase in slots since 2011. At 22.3.13, you'll see an increase for funds for the pre-K classroom operations of 2.5%. Again, that is the first increase in that category since 2010. And then at 22.3.14 is adding 4 behavioral and classroom support specialists that will travel the state working with our pre-K program. 23, economic development. First change you will see other than the statewide changes will be at 23.9.4. Hold on, excuse me, 23.9.5, my bad. Reduction in the cut there for the historical marker program, and we'll continue to work with the Senate for improvements on that reduction. At Section 24, Department of Education, you'll see adjustments there under ag education. The state's #1 industry, of course, is agriculture. Our folks within the Department of Education that are working with ag education around the state are doing an outstanding job. Georgia ranks 3rd now nationally in membership in the FFA. California and Texas are ahead of us, but they got quite a few more people. But our program here continues to add new programs, and what I'm tickled about are the programs that we're seeing added in the urban areas as well. We feel that it's incredibly important that students today that are going to be parents tomorrow understand where their food and fiber come from, and what we're doing here within ag education is certainly going to go forward in helping with that. You'll see an additional ad at 24.111 for a program specialist at our FFA camps around the state. 24.2.10 under admin, you'll see the addition for budget analyst and grant manager position. 24.4.8, you'll see an addition for the charter school grants. Section 24.5, you'll see several changes there, and basically we're rolling all of those up since that function has been rolled into the school improvement program. We're just saying eliminate those funds there at CTO and move those over into school improvement completely. 24.9.1 under GNETs, you'll see just a true-up number there. 24.9.3, again, just a true-up for the decline in enrollment. And then at 24.9.4, recognizing the teacher pay raise. Moving over to non-QBE, if you'll look at 24.13.2, just a true-up there. And then hold harmless at 24.13.3 for our residential treatment centers. As enrollment has declined, they do need the ability to right-size what they're doing and restructure their educational opportunities and personnel for their students. Then moving on down to 24.13.6, the ability to save funds there as it relates to the RTC program manager position. 24.14.6, just saying no to the reduction in travel under school nutrition. Preschool disabilities at 24.15, you'll see the adjustments there for salary. Pupil transportation, you'll see 2 adjustments at 24.16.1 and 16.2 as it relates to increased full-time equivalent students, and the 5% increase for the state-based salary for local school system transportation employees. QBE equalization 24.17.1, formula true-up, local 5 mil share, again, formula true-up. 24-19-2 under QBE, again, formula true up there. 24-19-3 is where the biggest piece of the teacher pay raise is recognized. Understand we've got a September 1 start date there. There is a 2-month lag with funding at DOE, so that still means that every teacher will receive a full year $1,000 pay raise in FY21. There will not be an issue with that. An adjustment at 29-14-5 on the State Commission Charter School supplements, charter school grants, again, an adjustment there. Another true up at 24-19-6, another true up at 24-19-7. We actually do go in under the special needs scholarship and do that true up in the midterm, so that's what we're saying there. Hold harmless on the school nurses at 19.8. Then at 24-19-10, you will see where we are for the first time fully funding the school counselor ratio at 1 counselor per 450 students pursuant to House Bill 283 from the 2013 session. Under recess, restoration of cuts there, recognizing what it is that they do for our school systems around the state and the partnership that they play there as well. 24-21-11, just the transfer of the Chief Turnaround Officer funds over into school improvement. 24-22.1, a reduction that was brought by the commission. Moving on to state schools, true up at 24-23-5, then at 24-23-6, saying no to the reduction of funds there. Those schools should have been exempt, just like the QBE formula was. And then the adjustment 24.23.7 for the teacher pay raises. Last thing in education at 24.25.7, increasing funds for 1 AP exam for free and reduced lunch eligible students and 1 STEM AP test per student statewide, and that's based on projected growth. Employee retirement system, you'll see 1 language item at 25.4.1. Again, what we've done for the last several years, encouraging them to reassess their financial stability and see if it's where that either a COLA or a one-time payment could be made to our retired state employees. Forestry Commission, Section 26, reduction in the cut at 1.6, reduction in the cuts also at 2.4 and 2.5, reduction in the cuts at 26.3.4, and recognizing that maintaining that equipment that Chair Lady Houston had mentioned that we purchased over the last few years is vitally important. And then at 26.3.5 and 3.6, again, a reduction in those cuts there. Office of the Governor, the statewide changes. The only other change there is at 27.6.8 under the Professional Standards Commission, adding some positions there. They're about 1,200 or 1,300 cases behind, so we're just trying to, 382 cases behind. They had about 1,276 additional cases open last year, so trying to help them get through that because, again, that's an important piece of backing up our teachers and making sure that they are treated fairly and that issues are handled in a timely manner. Section 28, Human Services, saying no to a reduction or partial reduction at 28.5.11 for the Multi-Agency Alliance for Children contract at $500,000 there. Saying to delay the implementation at 28.5.12 and utilize the existing funds for that pilot program on closed foster care cases. And then at 28.5.13, you'll see another 2% targeted pay increase for those individuals there. Moving on over to 28.7.12, saying no to the reduction there at Georgia Memory Net. Then Elder Support Services, you'll see us saying no to the transfer at 28.10.4 for the time being. Moving down to 28.12.6, there's a total of 1,883 caseworkers handling about 1.5 million cases in the state at any point in time. And we're just saying maintain $1.1 million there for the adequate funding or staffing levels that they need to handle those cases. Moving on over to Council on Aging at 28.18.3, just saying no to that reduction. For the council meeting, they have to meet, it's statutorily required, so those funds need to be maintained there. 28.19.1, saying no to that complete reduction, adding back to 48,500 on Family Connection Partnership, and no to the reduction as well at 28.19.2. Moving on over now to Office of Insurance Commissioner, one change at 29.3.6. I mentioned DCA earlier that legislation is required for that move, so we're just saying no to that move at this time. Insurance Commissioner, remaining in Insurance Commissioner, again, 29.4.4 and 4.5 as it relates to the Industrial Loan Division. That does require legislation, and it has not passed as of yet either. Moving on to GBI, Section 30. 30.2.7, dealing with criminal background checks, just saying raise that rate from $25.75 to $28. Saying no to the proposed reduction at 30.3.4 as it relates to the backlog for sexual assault kits, and just making sure that they've got enough scientists and technicians there to get those taken care of in a timely manner. 30.3.6 and 30.3.7 both relate to the new coastal lab examiner office at medical examiner office at Pooler. Make sure it's fully funded and operational. And 30.3.8, just allowing some funds there for the outsourcing of some of the chemistry cases that GBI has to do to free up some of the lab space within the headquarters as well. 30.4.5, maintain 4 sworn positions and 1 forensic auditor position there, reducing that cut. And then at 30.4.8, you'll see the other side of the cut from the Sexual Offender Review Board that we mentioned earlier. Moving on over to 30.5.5, saying no to the cut for the juvenile justice incentive grants to local governments, saying no to the cut as it relates to behavioral health. That's 3 positions that help monitor and provide treatment throughout the juvenile justice program. And then at 30.5.9, saying no to the cut at our accountability courts as well. On down at 31.2 under juvenile justice, you'll see another targeted salary increase of 4% at 31.2.8. Then you'll see an adjustment for teachers within juvenile justice at 31.3.12, and at 31.3.13, another 4% targeted increase there as well. 31.49 and 410, those same adjustments, a 4% targeted increase, and then also the teachers at 4.9. Section 32, Department of Labor, statewide changes there, but one language change or addition down at 32.4.6 as it relates to cash flow for the agency there. Section 33, Department of Law, saying to maintain 5 attorneys and 8 support staff there, so a reduction of that cut at 33.1.7. Department of Natural Resources, Section 34 at 34.1.8. You'll see the addition of $200,000 there as required, that tag teams with legislation we passed last year to commercialize oyster fishing and farming here in the state of Georgia. They need a couple of marine biologists to make sure that that's fully implemented and running the way it should. Then at 34.3.7, you'll see the addition of 2 environmental engineers and the ability to do some third-party testing there as it relates to coal ash and other environmental issues around the state. 34.6.5, there's a corresponding language at 16.10.9 under DCA. We've just trued up that number. And under operating expenses under law enforcement at 34.7, we've restored a portion of that cut. Then at 34.8.5 and 34.8.6, you'll see a partial restoration of the cuts there. And 34.8.7, the restoration of the $25,000 to help raise and right vessels on Lake Lanier that are a public safety hazard. 34.8.15, 2 visitor centers are being transferred over to DNR from economic development. However, DNR does need funds The original transfer did not include dollars, but they will need dollars to implement those changes. These are two actually historic facilities, so it does fall under DNR's purview at this point in time. 34.9.3, the BRACE program, blight removal and code enforcement initiative that was a idea of the Rural Development Council, moving it from DCA over to the Solid Waste Trust Fund, where it will be funded and operational as well. 34.10.6, just a reduction in the cuts. 34.10.7, again, reduction in the cuts there. And then at 34.10.9, saying keep the Sapelo Island Ferry under DNR's purview, but use state funds and not motor fuel funds as had been proposed. Moving on to pardons and paroles, section 35. 35.1.6, a true up there. 35.24 and 2.8, again, both of those are true ups for actual numbers. Moving on, section 36, State Properties Commission, no changes. Section 37, Public Defenders Council, saying at 37.1.5, just a true up on the salary there. And at 37.1.7 and 1.8, saying no to those reductions as it relates to training expenses. There are 12 continuing law education hours required of those individuals throughout the year, so we need to make sure that they're able to get that. Under public defenders, saying no to the reduction and freezing of positions at 37.2.6. Then you'll see at 2.7 and 2.8, 2.7, you'll see increasing of half the funds necessary for the salary scale step to keep in line with the assistant DAs. And then at 37.2.8, trying to keep public defenders and prosecuting attorneys in parity, and that's what we're doing there. And then at 2.9, 10, 11, 12, and 13, you'll see where there's additional judgeships being added there and what is needed in public defenders for that. Public health, section 38, a reduction in the cut as it relates to the Sickle Cell Foundation at 38.1.6, reduction in the cut as it relates to CORE at 38.1.7. Moving on over, 38.3.6, an adjustment there, just a little bit for true up in numbers. And then at 38.3.9, that is the Fulton County Exchange. You'll see it's a bookkeeping item, and it comes from 38.12.3 to that line item. It's where it lands. Under emergency preparedness at 38.4, 38.4.5, saying no at this time to the reduced funds for travel and supplies. 38.5.4, saying no to the reduction for the hepatitis C testing kits. No to the cut to the Georgia Poison Control Center at 5.5, and then just saying take a cut at the with some consulting contracts at 5.6 there under public health. Moving on over to looking at 38.10.3, saying no to those position reductions. Those are based in Atlanta, Albany, and Columbus. Feel that those are necessary to remain in place. 38.12.3, we restored $5.4 million of that cut there as it relates to the public health formula grants to the counties, saying that that's not a place that we need to be taking a reduction or as much of a reduction at this point. 38.12.4 is that bookkeeping item I mentioned that relates to Fulton County. Georgia Trauma Commission, 38.15.2. You'll see there recognizing reducing funds for contractual services, but using some of those funds plus an additional $594,000 to pay for the Regional Coordination Center that's being hosted by Grady. Grady has been doing this out of their pocket at this point, but it affects the entire metropolitan area. It's where, once they had the emergency within their emergency room and had the loss of beds, it became an issue on routing ambulances to the nearest available bed within the metropolitan area. This is actually something that, quite quite honestly, I thought was already being done. I think many of us probably felt that it was already being done. However, it was not. And so we're saying, let's keep that in position. Let's look at it for a further expansion out across the state, because it's something we should be doing statewide as well. Moving on to public safety. First changes you'll see there. Going to be at 39.4.4. Just to true up in the actual amounts there as it relates to the trooper schools. And then looking at the attrition at 39.4.7. They start off with 50, typically end up with about 30 that complete, but we're just recognizing that attrition as well. 39.5.7, we're saying no to using the motor fuel funds and saying use motor fuel funds for road improvements and use state funds here as it relates to motor carrier compliance. Moving on over to 39.7.4, saying no to the reduction in the temporary proctors and monitors. Counties wind up being the ones that have to pay if the state doesn't. 39.8.8, saying no to that reduction for the Georgia Sheriff's Association and the Chiefs of Police. That's something that will hurt them with recruiting efforts across the state, but it's a partnership that we need to maintain between the state and our local agencies. Moving on down to 39.9.6, reducing the reduction there. Easing the reduction might be the better way to put it. Restoring one instructor under that line item. 39.9.7, saying no on the reduction of those classes, those 125 classes. A true up at 39.9.8 for some travel related to those courses that are being restored. And then at 39.9.9, saying no to the termination of that contract. That becomes a recruitment and retention issue for North Georgia law enforcement agencies when they're trying to recruit folks that live nearby but are having to travel back and forth to Forsyth for that training. Makes it very hard for them to be able to get folks to stay on board. 39.10.4 and 10.5, saying no to using the Joshua Law funds for that reduction, putting those back in, but then telling the agency to take a cut at 10.5. Public Service Commission, an increase at 40.2.3 for 2 inspectors for the Call Before You Dig program. They will bring in about $300,000 per person for that investment. An increase at 40.2.4 for rent increases, reduction, but to be dealt with through attrition at 40.3.3. We've softened that cut and also said no to the reduction at 3.4 as it relates to contractual services and professional associations. Saying reducing the cut also at 40.3.5 for travel, and then an increase at 40.3.6 for rent. Under the Board of Regents, Section 41. Trying to get through it as quick as we can, folks, but there's a lot of moving parts. I want to start here as it relates. You'll see some reductions or some eliminations of some additional funds that OPB had put into place. We all thought as the process started that there would be the need to fund a TRS obligation for the optional retirement program. But as the audit had shown, there was a lot of discrepancy about whether or not those dollars were needed or required. There had been actuarial studies showing that it was not required, but the law had never been cleaned up and taken off the books, so it popped back up that it was. But we have actually passed legislation now that says that that is not necessary, so we've been able to glean some funds throughout the Board of Regents to deal with that issue. Now, under Section 41.1 Ag Experiment Station and 41.3 Cooperative Extension, what you'll see there is we've gone back to the cut plan that was submitted by the College of Ag and Environmental Sciences and actually softened the reductions just a little bit. We've made a concerted effort over the last several years to add research positions and outreach positions, and we just felt like we'd be going a little bit backwards at this point if we went to cutting those. 41.2.1, you'll see where we've said no to the moving of the vet labs from the Department of Ag until there's legislation created that allows for that transfer. 41.3, as I mentioned, cooperative extension, same as experiment stations. Under the Enterprise Innovation Institute, you'll see the partial restoration of a cut at 41.4.5. At 41.4.7, the Invest Georgia program, as Chairman Knight had mentioned in his comments earlier, we've had a pretty hard time getting some responsive information out of that program as how those funds have been invested. So at this point in time, we're recommending that we reduce the amount in the base. That will still leave a little over almost $5 million in the base for that program going forward. And we can always look at it again later. 41.4.12, just a change of that over to 41.9.7, just a bookkeeping move there. Under Forestry Cooperative Extension, under it and Forestry Research, we know that they're still responding to landowners across this state as it relates to Hurricane Michael and the impacts that it had, so we've softened many of the cuts there as it relates to them. Under Georgia Archives, we've said no to the reductions there. Several years ago, we had made some significant reductions to archives and just felt like that since we'd really added nothing back there over the years, that it was going to be troublesome for them to maintain their public and required operating hours if we took additional cuts. True up of expenses at 41.8.4 on the Cyber Innovation Training Center. Then you'll see an ad at 41.8.6 in a partnership with the Technology Association of Georgia for the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification Program. As the Cyber Center is locating in Augusta, Georgia, there are more and more positions opening up that require that additional training and certification. Georgia Research Alliance at 41.9.7, you'll see the move that I mentioned just a second ago of $133,000 there. Moving on to Marine Extension, again softening some of those cuts there. At the Medical College of Georgia Hospitals and Clinics, saying no to the cut at 41.13.2. Under Public Libraries, many of you have heard from our wonderful folks that run our libraries at home, a lot of volunteers that are heavily involved, and so we've gone in and looked in depth there. The first change you'll see is actually a little bit stronger cut at 41.14.4 that's made available because they're switching platforms from Microsoft over to Google, so it allows for savings. But at 41.14.5, a softening of the reduction there, so they'll be able to maintain the ability to take credit cards at each library. So at 41.14.8, just to hold harmless there, the population projection was a little bit too high, but we're just holding them harmless. 41.14.9, the restoration of the materials funding to 35 cents per capita. 41.15.8, restoration of the funds to Georgia Youth Science and Technology Center. 15.9, saying no to the reduction at the Center for Rural Prosperity and Innovation. Then 41.15.14, that one actually moves to 41.21.1, and that deals with the Holocaust Commission. We'll talk about that again here in just a second. Then at 41.16.9, saying no to that transfer from 41.18.11. You'll see something very similar to that again and here in a minute in the technical college system as well. It doesn't gain us anything, and so we feel like it would cause quite a bit of confusion and consternation. So you'll see that at 41.18 and at 41.18.11. At 41.18.9, you'll see the notation of the TRS ORP issue. At 41.19.6, again, the TRS ORP issue as well. 41.21.1, the Commission on the Holocaust as an attached agency being shown there. Under Georgia Military College, we moved at 41.22.6 dollars related to the emergency notification and camera system over to 41.23.4. It's just a transfer there. 41.22.7, recognition of some of the state's share of the teacher retirement system obligation under Georgia Military College. And at 41.23.4 is the item on the cameras and security system. Section 42, Department of Revenue, 42.8.6 is going to be your change there. We're saying to restore 5 revenue agents and 2 auditors. The return on investment there for those positions is about $2.44 million per year for those individuals at 42.8.9, saying no to the complete reduction there on that contract. Restoring 1.3 will allow DOR to maintain 6 contractors put in place there that have about a $10 million apiece return on investment on the work that they do. Section 43, Secretary of State, one change at 43.8.1. The Georgia Access to Medical Cannabis Commission, just a true up of the number there at 43.8.1. Student Finance, 44.2.1, a true up in the dual enrollment numbers there. Again, a true up on the Hope Scholarships for public schools at 44.9.1. And then at 44.14.1, you'll see an addition of $2 million to allow the continued expansion of the REACH program. Y'all, if your school system is not participating in REACH and you are not participating as a member of the public in your local community, you need to be involved in the REACH program. It's one of the most meaningful, impactful things that I've seen. I'm tickled to death with our participation in Barrow County, and I hope that all of you, before it's all said and done, will have a REACH program in your school systems as well. Section 45, Teacher Retirement System, no changes. Technical College System of Georgia, 46.2.12, you'll see where we're saying no to that transfer from the teaching formula. And that's the same, that mirrors what we did under the university system as well. And then at 46.6.9, the Rural Technical Worker Pilot Program, Representative Todd Jones and the Technology Association of Georgia have been working on a program to put some of these highly technical positions out in the state where the infrastructure is there to communicate at speed with the world, and where there's a population there that is able and willing to do this, and it actually gets some very well-paying positions out into the rural parts of the state, and kind of fits in with many of the things we've been doing with the Rural Development Council as well. Section 47, I almost said 27, y'all, thought we was backing up. 47.1.2 under capital construction, you'll see the re-recognition of the money coming from the Motor Carrier Compliance Division. At 47.2.1, you'll see a true up there on motor fuel, balancing across the program agencies. And at 47.2.2, 5,000, it was 500,000 that was allocated to intermodal for the Sapelo Ferry. But again, felt like that is not the proper use of House Bill 170 funds. And then if you'll look at 47.3.2, you'll have additional changes there at 47.4.2, 5.2, 9.2, 10.2, and 11.2 as it relates to merit-based pay adjustments. Then moving on over to State Road and Tollway Authority at 47.12.3, you'll see where those funds are no longer needed, and so we were able to use that money then to help pay for the 2% pay raises at DOT last year and recognition of them this year as well. Veteran Services, Section 48, statewide changes with one targeted raise at 48.4.5, about 111 total officers there, and so it will bump them a little over $1,100, almost $1,200 there in a 36% turnover rate category. Workers' Comp, Section 49, just the statewide changes, and then Section 50, of course, is bonds, and I imagine many of you flipped there first and probably have not paid attention to much of what I've had to say up to this point because you're looking to see if something that you were interested in was included there. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my walkthrough, and I'll be glad to answer any questions. I know that everyone in this room have been here since early this morning paying attention and have been engaged in this process, but glad to answer any questions that might have occurred as I've gone through the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You did a great job. I have one question. Representative Stovall.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, were there any funds set aside for potential with the coronavirus?
Well, no, not at this time. Let me tell you what we have done. So you remember in public health, we've reduced substantially the proposed reductions to the grant and aid to the counties by about almost $6 million. So that puts money back in that area if there's any local response that's necessary. We have been in touch and stay in constant touch with Dr. Toomey, the Commissioner at Public Health, and she's saying at this point in time she doesn't feel that there's anything that's necessary for us to do because there is going to be a substantial federal response that will be on its way here very shortly. I think last week Congress approved about $8.2 billion, I think, for coronavirus response. So she feels comfortable at this point in time that we're in good shape. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Seeing no other questions, I would entertain. I hear a motion, I think as I heard that, to pass HB 793 by committee substitute. Was that correct?
I think
And
that's what Chairman Knight said.
And I heard a second as well. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The ayes have it. We've got a budget. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you
dismissed.
again, and we are adjourned.